Hello my YouTube people, Alex Ferranti here, or Spaceman Ferrari 248. This topic of this video is going to be really peculiar for even my YouTube channel standards, especially regarding the fact that my channel, I barely ever even talk about politics, since the purpose of my YouTube channel is to escape the ridiculousness that is politics, religion, reality, hard-ass working, and homework from school in general, and all that stuff. But I feel like I need to touch base on this because this has been bothering the ever-loving Christ out of me for the last couple of years. Since politics, as well as religion, have been absolutely divisive since the Stone Age. I know a few friends of mine that don't really care about politics, and good for them that they don't. I didn't want to care about politics myself either, but because even when I didn't understand them, I thought they were a bunch of bullshit and waste of breath. But this does go without saying that I need to touch base on some shit that has been radiating in the political field and that has been negatively affecting not only my connections with my former friends and family, but rather the whole entire world. However though, regarding politics, it's more so the social problems rather than the economic problems that tend to bother the fucking shit out of me. There's been so much division escalating in this world because of politics, thus giving me the motivation to speak my mind about my political stance, explaining in a sagacious manner about why both the far left and the far right are so fucking obnoxious and insolent that it makes me cringe. They do nothing but solidify why I choose to call myself a libertarian that leans to the left. I'm slightly liberal, to put it in a shorter, more understanding term, rather than be one-sided in politics in general. There's been so much division escalating in this world because of politics, thus giving me the motivation to speak my mind about my political stance, explaining in a sagacious manner about why both the far left and the far right are so fucking obnoxious and insolent that it makes me cringe. They do nothing but solidify why I choose to call myself a libertarian that leans to the left. I'm slightly liberal, to put it in a shorter, more understanding term, rather than be one-sided in politics in general. I don't get why people are so black and white on this shit. Libertarians get shit both from the far left and the far right, and it's obnoxious. It's like,
if you're a libertarian that leads toward the left, you're not a libertarian, you're a liberal.
Or conversely,
if you're a libertarian that leads towards the right, you're not a libertarian, you're a conservative.
it's ridiculous and obnoxious how people see black and white in every single solitary fucking thing. I either have to be one or the other. It's a choice between conservative or liberal. I have to choose one of those? Really? No middle ground? Oh well. Only a Sith deals in absolutes, that sort of thing.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
Boring conversation anyway. Anyways, let me criticize both the left and the right to convey the main problems I have with both of them. I will not explain every little detail I have that is rather an issue with either side, so I will just narrow it down with the social problems on both sides that radiate bullshit. Alright, to the point. You see, to my understanding, most liberals claim to be all about diversity, equality, and anti-hate. I am too. I am pro-women's rights. I am pro-LGBT. I am pro-bathroom rights for transgender folks and pro-support for transgender people in general. I am hella supportive of science. I am anti-segregation. However, some liberals can get ludicrously moronic whenever they claim to be for diversity, especially when specific militant feminists sensationalize what men do, and it goes far beyond manspreading too. Let alone sensationalize words like mankind, human, German, woman, chairman, etc., etc., etc. I've myself even been sexualized by a psychopathic deranged loon before, as said in my video celebrating my 3rd consecutive A last year back in December 2017. When you have disgusting pissants like Brock Turner, Brett Kavanaugh, or however you say his last name, Sam Pepper, Davi fucking Vanity, still running free after being convicted sex offenders, this gives deranged people on the left, much less the very militant feminists, the sheer outright temerity to think anything individuals like me do in their eyes is sexual activity, which is outright sickening. Rape culture is horrible. Rape culture is hella harmful, and it even hurts men too, might I add. But conversely speaking, lying about some innocents doing quote, sexual activities makes you sink all the way down to their level rapidly. I even became a victim of a disgusting, vile, repulsive liar that tried to ruin my future in college. For a long while I felt terribly discouraged because of how but then eventually I overcame it, and I now am taking automotive classes in Toyota happily. But I digress. Sorry folks, that was a tangent, but on to the topic of criticizing religion. As most of my friends and relatives know by now, and understand at least, I am an atheist. And as an atheist, I think all religions should be criticized rationally. Not just Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Mormonism, and so on. Somehow the left is mostly fine with me criticizing all religions, but whenever it's Islam that gets rationally criticized, it is hyperbolized into hate speech, or better yet, racism. As if a fucking religious culture has anything to do with human race or skin color to begin with. As if criticizing a religious culture that is just as ludicrous, ridiculous, moronic as every other religion any sensible person like myself calls out on for being violent and hateful, and these liberals have the outright temerity to claim that we are being hateful bigots just because we call out and criticize violence effectuated by Islam. Did these liberals learn nothing after September 11th, 2001, the 2004 bombings of Madrid, Spain, the 2005 bombings of London, United Kingdom, the 2015 bombings of Paris, and so much more other violent events committed by Islamic terrorists? My tolerance for not even just Islam, but all religions in general is less than zero. Well, because of said events and much more militants that take their religious views way beyond the boundaries of what is tolerable, liberals, I understand this sounds like an outlandish idea and a hard pill to swallow, but bear with me. There is a huge difference between criticizing a religious book that is absolutely ridiculous in every condition and just flat out overall harassing the people. Two completely different things. Get that in your thick skulls. Says a lot about your own integrity if you can't even differentiate the difference between harassing people and criticizing religious culture. It is factually not hate speech to criticize Islam rationally. Get that in your heads. How exactly did we go from terrorist attacks from Islam extremism to being afraid to offend radical Muslims. That is honestly pathetic, America. That is honestly absolutely pathetic. As someone who stands for human rights, I am strongly against Islam, especially when in various Middle Eastern countries you get beheaded, stoned to death, tossed off buildings, and other such violent shit solely based off of being a woman or being gay. We need to stop turning a blind eye to this and actually have the nerve to criticize the shit out of these religious cultures. Calling me a bigot for not tolerating radical Muslims or radical whatever religious label that harm women and gay people solely for being that way, aka real bigotry, could not have been a bigger pinnacle of pot meat kettle analogy. To put it into full perspective, in the lens of a far left liberal, I am apparently a bigot because I do not tolerate far right Muslims, might I add, who they hilariously even defend, harming women and gay people solely based on the reason of them not sharing the same sex or sexual orientations as they do. Can they not have sound any more hypocritical and preposterous? I see this as nothing more than a shallow attempt to appease the diversity, or at the very least appease the folks who are supposedly different from them. In the most ridiculously shallow way possible. Especially when I hear stuff like LGBT against Islamophobia. That is no difference than mice condoning cats. Right there, folks. That is no different than mice condoning cats hunting rodents. And now finally, the final topic of my criticism towards the left. It's when the militant far-left liberals transition every single solitary thing such as elections, 9/11, athletic talent, musical talent, etc. into a race issue when of said topics had nothing to do with race nor racism nor skin color to begin with. For example, let me provide a screenshot of what this reverse racist bitch had said. Choosing a candidate based on gender or race, huh? That, folks, right there is a legit example of bigotry. You are measuring a person's credibility based on their skin color rather than their qualifications and viewpoint. This is the kind of shit that hands Donald Trump everything he wants on a silver platter. As long as of said bullshit by the liberals I call out on continues to radiate within the American culture, Donald Trump will win again in 2020. And we are giving him what he wants because of this bullshit. And you liberals still wonder why the most abhorrent candidate even got political power to begin with. If you want him to lose, then learn from your mistakes. Look at yourselves in the mirror and find a way to make yourselves look less ridiculous. Rather than the qualifications and viewpoints, you are judging someone based on their skin color, which is not so different from what the far right does. So I suggest you people to cut the shit and stop spawning diarrhea from your mouth as a pathetic attempt to appease the supposed diversity, which, by the way, radical Muslims and gay people, that's kind of an oxymoron, so I suggest you check your morality before you yell at us for rationally criticizing Islam. I have more problems than the left than what I could list here, but you folks understand what I mean. Hell, let me tell you something before I wrap this whole rant on the left up. Before I move on to criticizing the right, one Marxist liberal I had a heated debate with happens to be one of my relatives and had the outright temerity to delete me all because I stated the fact that the Nazis, to a degree, were religious. Is he really that fucking blind to the motto "Gott mit uns" on their fucking uniforms that Germany even had for centuries? Does he not read history books? Of course, when I factually pointed out the fact that Hitler and the Nazis' history of having religious principles into their morality, he went into full damage control rather than having a civil discussion of said topic. He called me an ass, whereas he was the one being saltier than the whole surface of Crate which is the planet from Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Salt. Ground forces incoming.
Copy that. On our way.
I'm not the only one that got blocked by that whiny child, though. Two of my friends were having a civil discussion on one of my statuses that was praising Obama. They were rationally criticizing Obama. Then he said that my friends were morons and I should save my breath, and then he blocked both of them like a child. My friend Dylan Young, then months later, was criticizing extreme socialism. And then suddenly, of course, 4 comments later, he was blocked of said relative. He hides behind the block button like the coward he is. Says a lot about his own integrity when he unfriended me like a child, when he couldn't take any of the counter arguments I was providing against him into heart. And that is why I am embarrassed to share a name with him, but I digress. Now, my honest opinion, despite both sides having their faults, the right is objectively worse than the left. I already made a large series of videos that provide rational criticism towards the belief system of the multitude of religious that are normally the majority of the right wing, so click on those videos if you would like to see some more long, well, intellectually mature and judicious videos of mine, so I wouldn't have to rehash the same video here. But yeah, most of my principles are libertarian left, but I do have to correct one thing in my video that I made a while back. When I said that Timothy McVeigh was worshipful of science as a rather feeble argument, of why people whom are worshipful are presumably evil, what I should have said was that unlike KKK, Nazis, neo-Nazis, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, etc., Timothy McVeigh was not religiously motivated, but rather an anti-government extremist. If ignoring all Islam extremist terrorist acts, Timothy McVeigh's terrorist acts was the worst in American history. He may not have been religiously motivated at all, but his principles were still fairly right-wing. Hell, you don't exactly have to be a Christian to be a bad or good person. It's not necessarily your faith that makes you objectively bad or good. You can be a pastor of a megachurch and still murder thousands and have it not be in the name of your sky daddy. Timothy McVeigh claimed that his religion was science. But how he viewed that kind of religion was not like what most militant Muslims and militant Christians, militant Jews, militant Catholics, and so on viewed their God. It was mainly a hyperbole when he claimed that science was his God. Sorry folks, that was a massive tangent, but anyway, if you think certain folks should have their freedom limited just because of your black book, then you should not be friends with me. Now, I'm not one to be shallow to the extent where I say stuff like, if you don't agree with me, unfriend me. Much like the people that Ranter in Shades was calling out in his Don't Agree With Me, Unfriend Me video. But if you take it to the point where gay people shouldn't even have the same basic rights everyone else has, all because some sky daddy, which there is no legit scientific proof he exists in the first place, whereas homosexuals are confirmed to be in existence on the other hand. That is where you take it too far. If you ask me, I take free speech seriously, but at the same time, you don't have to respect all opinions by default. Sorry, but if you have opinions that call for intolerance towards people of differing sexual orientations, sexes, gender identity, disability, or what have you, you don't deserve your opinions respected by default whatsoever. Those people cannot help the way they are. They were born that way, no matter how much you attempt to falsely claim otherwise. I find it sad how we even need to pass laws for gay people, transgender people, and women to have the same rights as we do. Even if it's something that they're not born with, you're actively shaming those folks for who they are. You are making them feel bad for solely existing. It's 2019, yet continues to be an issue at hand, even to the extent of our so-called president not attempting to ban transgender from the military. As if gender identity has anything to do with your ability to pull a trigger, cook a grenade, medicate, pilot an aerial vehicle, etc. Funny how the multitude of the far-right conservatives use this pathetic attempt to counter-argue that we don't know anything about science when it comes to the nature of gender identity. In other words, if you have a penis, then you're a man. If you have a vagina, you're a woman. Rhetoric. Maybe if they did far more research than what they claim they did, they would understand the sheer difference between sex and gender. They're apparently the ones that talk about science when they don't even understand how evolution works or truly know how the world came to be. Perfectly describes the pot meat kettle analogy, huh? Since this comes from the same group of imbeciles that use a religious book that involves a talking snake and a man walking on water to justify their anti-gay and anti-science beliefs. If you say you can't do XYZ because of your religion, that's fine. But if you oppress and limit someone else's freedom just because your black book said to, then that's where I give one big fat fuck you to you. To put it into full perspective, I want to live in a country where LGBT people have the same basic human rights as any other human. I want to live in a country where scientific facts are put before religious faith. I want to live in a country where the sick can easily afford healthcare. I want to live in a country where our citizens can protect themselves from certain out-of-control crime in their whereabouts, which is exactly why I do not exactly oppose guns. I want to live in a country where the candidates don't screw over our own Americans to give the advantage to illegal immigrants, Elizabeth Warren, that no one even gives a damn to give background check to in the first place. I understand not all immigrants are bad. I am not anti-immigrant by any means necessary. I am not anti-immigrant by any stretch of the imagination. I totally understand why they are trying to escape to America, to escape the horrors of the Middle East, since various Middle Eastern countries are far worse than America. But we can't just surrender and take them in. We need to make sure we are not dealing with anything dangerous. We need to understand their motivations first. The right opposes all but two of said topics I mentioned, where I made a list of I want to live in a country where, when, why, etc. One other thing, don't get me wrong at all, Antifa takes their actions beyond the line. I think what they do is absolutely ludicrous, but considering this country lately has been radiating with Nazis that want to strictly limit the freedoms of people that are not white, straight, or fucking notification. Considering that Nazis want to strictly limit the freedoms of people that are not white, straight, or male, doxing on Nazis, the people we killed in World War II, might I add, is perfectly justified considering they want to harm people that are different than them. Sorry if that may sound harsh, but I just do not feel sorry for people that are against human rights. Did I mention we killed Nazis in World War II yet? Do I have to stress this any further? Why are we giving to people, freedom to people that we killed in World War II under the banner of freedom? That is what does not make any sense. That is complete contrarian to common sense. That makes zero sense. I also, to a degree, can understand voting for Trump, but worshipping him as if he's Jesus in disguise, which is an oxymoron, by the way. Ugh. Who puts this disgusting prick before their friends and family? An idiot, that's who. What's so great about him anyway? It's almost as if these far-right goons hype him up to then I hype up anything and all things heavy metal, Star Wars, NASCAR, video games, and so on. Ridiculous as fuck. Conservatives, I have breaking news for you, but I do not have to fucking love, much less vote for your precious president to be friends with anyone that leans to the right. Not everyone who opposes the far right is on the left, but I am gonna get to that later. Also, if liberals are as snowflakes as this fad being trended, then try telling a conservative happy holidays. Or that gay people should have the same basic rights irrespective of what conservative religious beliefs people on the right have. Or show them any diversity cast for the new Star Wars movies, or that transgender people should use whatever bathroom that matches their mental identity gender, that they felt like they were as opposed to the gender they were born with, or that athletes have the freedom of speech to peacefully protest the national anthem, or that a baker should just proceed to bake a cake for a gay couple regardless of what religious principles the baker holds, or that a woman's health is far more important than the fetus that was spawned inside her womb out of rape or incest inflicted onto her that she had no control over in the first place. Then we'll have a nice talk who the real snowflakes are before you throw yourself into a pot meat kettle scenario. To wrap all this up, let me put this all in a nice little too long didn't listen manner. If one is going to make up history straight out of their ass and get easily salty as fuck over the evidence I provide to them to prove my case against them, in other words, throwing a temper tantrum over the fact that a fact I provide that doesn't align with their moronic illusions, and looking at a certain relative of mine, then yes, unfriending over politics is pathetic in that circumstance. However, if somebody's political view is that LGBT people and women are not deserving of equal rights, then that person is not my fucking friend. People talk about politics as if it's an isolated, abstract concept that only matters at an election time. Somebody's politics is their worldview. It's whether they think human beings deserve rights. It's how they think the world should function. And if somebody thinks the world should be colder, meaner, less accepting, and downright hostile to people that are different than them, then the friendship is sure as fucking hell is as good as dead. Here are some hard pills to swallow, by the way, as a way to wrap this entire video up. Not everyone who supports gay marriage, supports women's rights, criticizes conservatism, criticizes Trump's authoritarianism, opposes religion, is on the left. Or conversely, not everyone who is anti-SJW or criticizes feminism, criticizes Hillary Clinton, or doesn't necessarily hate Donald Trump, identifies as Christian, cares about free speech and is against censorship, criticizes Islam, criticizes socialism, both rationally, at that, might I add, is considerate and wary of illegal immigration, is on the right. Not everything is as black and white as you far left Marxists and far right fascists think they are. People have ruined and destroyed many friendships and divided many family members, myself included. I do not respect politics and religion solely for that shit, and until it continues on being a thorn in my ass about all that absolutist bullshit from both the left and the right, I will continue to call out this bullshit passionately if even my own bloodline is divided because of that bullshit. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Just thought I'd elaborate my political views and about why I nowadays care about politics. So, see ya.